Pentagon official has leaked that Russian casualty numbers have nearly doubled in the last year. Just how is Russia coping with these massive battlefield losses? I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. Let's talk about it. So this was a crazy story that dropped today. This is actually a leak from the Pentagon, from an unnamed Pentagon official who has said that Russia's losses in Ukraine have exceeded 600,000. That's killed and wounded. Now, obviously, as they point out, since the summer, Moscow's continued to make gains in Ukraine's eastern region, as well as a creeping advance towards Pokrovsk, which is not really still the case, but understandable. However, it's clearly come at an absolutely insane level of losses, right? Russian losses, according to this U.S. defense official, he says, quote, Russian losses, both killed and wounded in action, in just the first year of the war exceeded the total of all Soviet losses in any conflict since the Second World War combined, right? That's Chechnya and Afghanistan, right? So Russia, though, somehow is still able to keep this fight after 2.5 years. Of course, there's a little more to it than that, right? And when we look at the data, this official also speculates, but we'll explain it's more than speculation at this point. Speculates that Putin's going to have a hard time recruiting in the wake of this increasing numbers of casualties. In fact, ISW has some interesting assessments here. What they point out is that the previous U.S. intelligence assessment was that Russian forces suffered about 315,000 casualties in Ukraine as of December of this year. That means, of course, that casualty numbers have likely doubled since only 10 months of conflict, which is absolutely insane. That is an insane attrition rate, and a lot of people sit there and they say, "Oh, they say, oh, Russia's winning," but it's hard to look at these numbers and describe what's happening to them as a victory, right? Again, we're talking about entire cities worth of people who are getting wiped out. Now, before we talk about what exactly Russia seems to be doing to mitigate this problem, of course, I want to mention that if you feel like you are being ground down, you don't need to enact a mobilization of your population. Instead, maybe you just need a little extra caffeine. You should check out Strike Gum. Strike Gum is the superior energy drink alternative. We packed an entire energy drink's worth of caffeine into each piece of gum. It's made right here in the USA, out in Denver, and best of all, it's sugar-free and veteran-owned. So if you're looking to leave over-sugared, over-caffeinated, and overpriced energy drinks behind, check out Strike Gum. The link is in the description. You can go to strikegum.com, or you can find it on Amazon, where we are the highest-rated caffeine gum. Thanks to all you guys that have left us those ratings, by the way. Okay, so what is Russia doing? Well, the answer is they're recruiting old men. Yeah, that's right, guys. Literally, according to, we've heard about this story earlier, but Meduza, the Russian investigative news outlet, has an even more damning story here, where they went and interviewed a large number of frontline commanders and troops who report that they're seeing more and more of what they call grandpas, or recent recruits who are over 50 years old. And you can see, literally, here's a picture of one, a Russian recruit undergoing combat training. And this was just 6 days ago that this was taken. And you can see that while this guy has some basic gear here, he's clearly using what looks like a Russian RPG-7 from really probably that was made around the same year this guy was born. And he looks like he's in his maybe late 50s, early 60s. And that's typical, right? Russian soldiers are reporting, again, that the average age of military personnel of these recruits have gone up. They say 50% of soldiers in our sector are old guys, according to another soldier. And he said they're being mowed down, which is pretty grim. That's, again, a soldier stationed in Kharkiv, a Russian soldier. One soldier fighting in Donetsk said that, quote, since the start of the summer, our regiment has lost about half our people near Chasiv Yar, either killed or wounded. He said, quote, they keep sending us reinforcements, but half the people arriving are over 50, maybe even older. Not all of them make it to their positions. And while one One other soldier says to quote, "It's just old guys heading into battle." The soldier narrates as he films, showing an older serviceman struggling to walk down a road. He says, "What's our command thinking? These are the kind of fighters they're recruiting. People want to join up out of foolishness, but the enlistment officers need to pay attention." And when he asks the older man his age, the old man replies, "I'm 62." So this is exactly what we're seeing. Russia scraping the bottom of the proverbial barrel. Even an airborne officer in Kherson, this is one of Russia's best units, described the new contract soldiers as grim, which is how I would feel seeing a bunch of people who should be playing with their grandkids fighting a war. He said about 40% are over 50, and 3/4 of these new arrivals are old men. It's sad, but that's the reality. And then he adds, "I'd rather have these guys than kids just out of school," which I can kind of see that. There's definitely some value in maturity, but at the end of the day, 60-year-old bodies there's a reason there's not any 60-year-olds in the Olympics. And it's because everything's heavy, right? You literally have to be able to keep up, right? One analyst sums it up pretty well. He goes, "It's much easier for a young person to grab a mortar and run several meters, right? Everything is heavy in war. The armor that you carry, helmets, weapons, ammunition, you need to be able to run with all that weight. Old men in general aren't going to be as effective. Older soldiers are not going to be able to do things like dig positions as fast or at all. These are just really, really tough. War is tough on the body, and while certainly we've seen in Ukraine a number of older soldiers perform combat duty, right? The average Ukrainian soldier at one point was as high as about 43 years old. Again, the difference between a 43-year-old and a 55-year-old is vast. Again, right? There's a few guys in their 40s still fighting in the UFC. There are no 50-year-olds in the UFC, right? And so the other important thing to take away from this is that it's a change, right? Ukraine from day one had a policy that said, actually, we don't even start mobilizing troops until they reach 27 years of age. So Ukraine was always intentionally skewing younger. It has to do with their demographics following the post-Soviet era, and to sort of weed out the biases and give people a chance to start careers and families before being recruited. But that's been their policy since day one, and their age level has remained fairly constant. The issue is not so much that Russia now has this very old cadre of folks, but that it has risen. In fact, one of the recruitment officers Medusa talked to said that they found that in the past year, the average age of recruitment has gone from 40 to 50, right? And here's the thing, guys. The Russian state, the average life expectancy for a man is only 63. So if Russia experiences another jump in its recruitment numbers, they're literally going to have to be recruiting people from the graveyard, right? And so I think this is one of those signs where a lot of people say, oh, Russia's winning the war of attrition because Russian forces are seizing more fields in eastern Ukraine. But that is not winning a war of attrition if it's costing them these huge numbers of people. And worse still is the fact that I think as time goes on, more people are going to see through the propaganda machine. And again, think about it. If you have 600,000 who are killed and wounded, let's say 400,000 of them are wounded who are sent back to Russia. What are they going to tell their friends and family about the war, right? They're going to tell them that, hey, the things you see on the TV, that's propaganda. The war is brutal. We're not welcome there. This isn't, the Ukrainians are defending their home and they're defending every inch of turf. And we're not making a difference. And so when you have this person with real experience who tells you what the real war is like, it's going to make it harder for other people to say, oh, I want to participate in this. I want to join the Russian military. Again, that's why you're seeing the pay of Russian contract soldiers rise precipitously, right? So you have these huge signing bonuses. You have old men who, may have a level of even like nihilism that says, well, this one-time bonus is going to make a huge difference for my family. And, again, Russians in their mid 50s, they know that they're not long for this world. Again, men's life expectancy in Russia about 62 or 63. Anyway, that's all I had, guys. Huge thank you to the Colonel tier members at combatvetnews.com, like Bill Collier, Robin Colburn, Gaius Martin, Eugenia Cuesta, Chris Gorsuch, Francis Karius, L90, Petra Tororu, as well as all of our lieutenant tier folks. I could not do this without you guys. I appreciate you so much. Hit that subscribe button while you're at it, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.